Really excited to be here. My name's Christine Chalk. We are talking about the future of interactive storytelling. I am the least important person here. So I want to introduce you all to everyone here, but in typical fashion, we're going to do it the way we've done on Tagboard Storyteller series in 3 words. The best stories are blank, blank, and blank. Give you a second to think about it for a moment here, but I want you to know who's up on stage. First, we've got Tagboard's CEO, Nathan Peterson. Tagboard has been creating interactive audience engagement experiences for media, sports, entertainment organizations around the world. Nathan, 3 words. Best stories are?
Ooh, 3 words. I'm going to go with the best stories are engaging, funny, and impactful. And speaking of 3s, you can't discount the fact that you're a 3-time Emmy Award-winning producer, so just have to throw that shameless pitch in there for you since you won't do it yourself.
I will not do it myself. You're right, spot on. Okay, moving down, we've got CJ Deere. He's from Fox Sports, senior producer of the Club Shay Shay podcast featuring Hall of Famer Shannon Sharpe. CJ, 3 words. Best stories are?
I would say the best stories are authentic, relatable, and timely. You just never know how a story can impact the next person. I don't believe I will be on the stage for the stories that I've heard, learned, and consumed over the years. So those 3 things.
That's awesome. We'll cut you some slack. That was a few more than 3 words, but it's all right. Next, moving down, we've got Amanda Carey, coming 8 years at NFL Media, a segment producer there, working on both linear and digital content. Amanda, hit us with your 3.
So I would say best, memorable, engaging, and comical would be the best stories for sure.
Nice, I'm noticing some trends here. Our closer, down on the very end, Tyler Price from Bleacher Report. You are the VP of Content Development and Production. 3 words.
Yeah, I'll move away from the descriptors. I think I misread this question, honestly. But I'll go with the best stories are connecting with audience.
Awesome. Nice spin on it. There we go. So we're noticing a trend here. We're talking about interactive storytelling, engaging, fun. Let's set the stage a little bit. First of all, you'll notice a QR code on the screen behind us. We want this to be interactive. Feel free to pull out your phone, scan, play along. We want to gamify the experience a little bit, get your interaction with us, because what we're seeing is the storytelling landscape has changed a lot. Back in the day, linear TV, in-person production, and in-person game day, they won the audience, they won the eyeballs, and consequently they won the ad dollars. But nowadays you're fighting live streams, social, second screen, OTT, fast channels being spun up every single day. Pretty much everyone who's got a cell phone in their pocket. There's over 8 billion new sources of competition that you're up against to win. And that's why we've got these folks here, because they're doing it really darn well. And what we've noticed that's setting them apart is the ability to create engaging content, to do it fast, to do it efficiently, and to give their audiences something they can't find anywhere else. So I want to start by doing what y'all do best, and that's tell us a story. Look, these people have a lot of options to go listen to another panel, so let's keep them here, engage them, interact, and just hear a story about a time when you created something that was truly interactive. It could be a story, a segment. Let's start all the way down at the end. Tyler, kick us off.
Sure. It's at the core of what we do, both at Turner and BR, to bring our audience into the narrative and all the work that we're producing. One that was really fun we did recently here with our partners at House of Highlights. We've launched a new series of creator challenges, and specifically these events we're calling Creator Showdowns, where we'll take the top creators in YouTube and bring them together for some form of competition. We've done a series of these with our partners at HOH, and we had a recent one that we decided to put 20 of the top YouTube creators in a go-kart race and stream that competition live with a $100,000 purse for the winner of a go-kart race. So we love that. We knew that they have these massive engaged fan bases. How do we pull their fan bases from their YouTube channels over to the HOH channel to engage with this content more than just them asking for tune-in, right? So what we created, and for those of you who are avid K1 go-kart racers, you'll know this, but you can have your karts on different levels. All the way, I think it's from 1 to 5, and that equates to how much speed, right? So we set everyone's carts early on at level 4. It's pretty fast. And then during the stream, we would allow audiences, through polling on YouTube, to vote who should get a speed boost during the race. We weren't sure how impactful this would be. We saw two things. One, massive return from their audiences. People really care about the individual creators, so they would come on and, Cash Nasty's audience would show up and really engage with that poll to try and move him up during the race. So this is as the race is going live, right? He's in 4th place. Let me give him a speed boost and try and move him along. And then we saw it actually impact the race. Some of these people, you need to be in the top 3 to move on, and so on and so on. And these speed boosts started to change positioning on the track itself. So it created this thing where I think at times we add interactivity as a layer to have interactivity, and we're guilty of it on our side for sure at times. This one checked so many boxes as like interactive, pulling audience in, and now allowing them to truly impact the content in a meaningful way. And we saw great return on it, and our brand partners who sponsored it really enjoyed it, and it was kind of a fun one for us.
I feel like you were straight up Mario Kart, and everyone was getting to, give
It's
the little
exactly what
magic
it is.
mushrooms to people on stage.
Exactly what it is, yeah.
Can you share a little bit about the return you saw?
Yeah, I mean, in what sense? Like numbers-wise?
If you have them.
Yeah, I don't have those top of mind, honestly. I'm being candid, but like what we saw was new audience, subscriber base for the HOH Showdown channel rise afterwards, and we brought all these people in. I wish I knew the total number of votes, but it was quite significant.
That's awesome.
And it was a monetizable element that we gave to a partner so they can sponsor the speed boost itself. So it was successful on a lot of fronts.
That's really awesome. It's really awesome. Well, let's just move right on down the line. Amanda, tell us your story.
Yes. So the NFL draft was actually in Vegas this year, and when we saw the layout of how backstage was compared to our main stage, it was quite a long walk from where our players were with their families, and then when their name would get called from the commissioner, it was like a 30 to 45 second walk, which in TV time is an eternity. So we decided to kind of entertain fans, so they're not just sitting there watching these players after their name gets called walk up to the stage, which is boring. We put up a QR code, which obviously everybody loves QR codes now thanks to the pandemic, but we put it up and we added a trivia game. So we worked with our research team to, QR code, see that's producing right there, I love it. But we worked with our research team and they helped us pull fun facts and college stats about these players. So it gave viewers at home something to do instead of just sitting there watching a player walk across, this long hallway up to greet the commissioner. And they learned something in that time too, because we've noticed too, a lot of times people don't necessarily, they're not diehard college fans and diehard NFL fans. We see a shift in, it's either one or the other. So it gave fans an opportunity to do something so they weren't changing the channel. And then learn something in that same time frame as well. And one interesting fact that we took away from that was engagement it far exceeded what we thought it was going to. And the amount of people who scanned the code and actually participated, they played, we had like 4 or 5 questions for each player, and the amount of people who stayed the entire time blew us out of the water. And another interesting fact was the amount of scans we got from outside of America. We had so many in Germany and London. So it's definitely something that, it shocked us a little bit, but it's just a fun way for fans to be entertained since they already have their phones in their hand anyways. Most people do when you watch TV. So yeah, it's just an interactive, engaging way, I would say, for fans during the draft.
It's a really cool way to kind of galvanize a global audience too. Sports isn't domestic, it's everywhere. CJ, tell us a little about your story.
Absolutely. Our digital team does a great job including interactive elements into their shows. The one that stands out to me the most was our Super Bowl watch party that we had with Brett Favre, Drew Brees, and Joe Montana. And it really kickstarted what we do now in terms of the way that people are able to interact with the shows through tweets, media, gifts. Just make it engaging because you hardly get a chance to have a Hall of Famer interacting with your content. So that was really the Kickstarter and what you see now with our NFC Championship game watch parties as well as the World Cup that we're going to have. So USA versus Mexico that foundation that we created during that live stream is what we do today.
It's very cool. I remember watching that very live stream and being able to ask a question to some of those Hall of Famers is you're creating a really unique link. Those are viewers for life now once you get to ask that far of a question. So Nate, I want to talk to you a little about, you're in a really unique position because at Tagboard you've gotten to work with hundreds of sports, media, entertainment organizations as they're building out those strategies. We asked all of you earlier, if you played along with the QR code, what percentage of people you thought sat with a phone in their hand. We'll pull up kind of what you were thinking. If you haven't had a chance to play along, feel free to join us. The correct answer is actually that 70. All right, let's see, how'd you do? All right, we went with 80. So the good news is it's not as bad as you thought. But 70% of people have a phone in their hand while they're watching TV, which is a big challenge that you've heard about a lot from a lot of these organizations. What's the approach that people are using to tackle that challenge?
Yeah, it's been really fun to see. I mean, we have 3 of our best examples on stage here of the fine folks we work with in the media industry. We're working with probably over 700 different media brands now, and what was really interesting about the QR code conversation was that. This wasn't really even a thing a couple of years ago, and QR technology was like something that came about and then died really quickly. And a lot of people I talked to in the media industry were even making fun of it when it started to have a resurgence. And we were beating down the door saying, no, you actually should start using this, because once Apple and Google put the technology in the camera and you're just simply swiping left and getting to your camera and now you can scan this thing, I'm like, it's a direct way to connect with anyone. And we've seen, I think one of my favorite early examples was from your guys' MLB show, Tyler, the Pedro's Who's Your Daddy? You could scan on the TNT show and figure out, or TBS show, I should say, and figure out who you wanted to be Pedro's daddy, and you could immediately go to a Twitter poll. It sent you directly into the Twitter poll.
The best part of that was Pedro trying to figure out how that technology works. Yeah. He's like, I have so many daddies.
Yeah. But this opens up a world of opportunities, right? I think even some of the earlier things we're seeing now with NFTs and how people are feeling like, oh, are NFTs going to be, are they going to work? Are they not going to work? Is this just a buzzword? When you add connectivity and speed into the production, a lot of things can happen, right? I think we'll see in the next couple of years even that you could imagine a highlight play happening, and then you pull up a lower third with a QR code and it could lead you to a unique opportunity to purchase something, and maybe that is something collectible. So it's been fun to see all of these different media entities really start to kind of push the envelope with what you can do with the fan or the viewer's phone sitting in their lap.
I see you nodding all the way at the end there, because I feel like this is at the core of what Bleacher does.
Yeah, and Turner Sports, together, I think we talk about this second screen thing, and a lot of times in a combative, we have to fight for attention manner, right? But I think those who are winning in the space are approaching it as a larger ecosystem instead of 2 separate things. And how do we keep them as tight as possible together? How do we make one exist and cannot exist without the other? Creating the connection between the two allows you to not worry about, is that long walk at draft going to mean that people start to fade away? No, we're going to provide value in that moment through an additional engagement vessel. And I think if you can tie them together and you can make them really symbiotic, you have this super powerful opportunity to keep audience present. And keeping audience present doesn't mean they're watching TV the whole time, right? It means they're connecting with your content ecosystem. And so that just opens up so much creativity and ideation, and the platform becomes kind of secondary to, are we serving this larger group?
Yeah, it's really complementary, not competitive. CJ, you're kind of on an interesting perspective on the podcast side. What's your strategy for cross-channel?
To be honest, I think we really study our audience. So with Shannon Sharp, he has a specific audience that he's trying to attract. So it's really studying them, researching them, and then also what are the conversations that they're having on social media. So therefore, whenever we're creating a rundown, we're trying to make sure we insert questions or having certain moments. Like right now, he's big on memes and things of that nature. So how can we add those elements into the show? That way, whenever we're distributing, because digital, so we distribute it back on all of these different platforms, we want to make sure it's engaging with the audience and optimized properly so they can interact with the content.
Absolutely.
I want to see the stats on Drip Bayless.
Oh, yeah. The J's you already know.
Amanda, a lot of what you work on is you get to work on linear and digital as well. What do you find is the most powerful ways to do fan engagement?
So for us, it's just giving fans a seat at our table. And, you know, I've been there for 9 years now, coming on to my 9th season, and because we count in seasons in the NFL, you don't count by years. And when I first started, our producers never wanted to hear from fans, in the sense of if a fan's tweeting about our show, they don't care. I can't tell you how many times I had a producer look at me as we're live on air and say, is Russell Wilson tweeting about us right now? And like having to break their heart and be like, yeah, no. Unfortunately,
He's busy.
Russell,
He's busy.
like unfortunately, he's only tweeting, you know, hashtag Go Hawks at that time. That's all like, I
Easy.
ever
We're
said.
from Seattle, okay? Easy.
I'm sorry. Well, he's not even
It
in
still
anymore.
stings.
It's a sore spot.
But it has completely transpired, I would say, over the years where our producers see value in fans now. And at the Combine this year, we had Michael Irvin on the field with Steve Smith Sr., just going through the drills that were happening during the Combine. And he was wearing, like when I tell you he was wearing a small shirt or a tight shirt, it was like less than a schmedium. Like it was like the tightest shirt you could ever, you know, imagine. Almost to the point where it was like, did he get the wrong size shirt? But no, that's what he requested. But fans started tweeting about it, and we didn't really poke fun about it on air. But of course, fans, just being fans, were tweeting to us saying like, we gotta get Irv a new shirt. So we started showing these fan tweets as a complete surprise to everyone on air, and Steve Smith just ran with it and literally like was rolling on the ground laughing so hard, just making fun of Irv. And Irv is just a personality all in himself, and he had fun with it, and you know, he enjoys being like picked on like that. But it just added so much value to the show. It's like you're kind of giving love to the fans who are tuning into your broadcast as it is, while also enhancing it and having fun. You know, it doesn't always have to be the X's and O's of football. Like, people are talking about his tight shirt. Let's poke fun about it. Especially the Combine, it's such long coverage every day. Like, you can only watch the same drill so many times over and over. So I think finding ways to engage organically in that sense just makes it enhances everything altogether.
I think I was in those control rooms early too, where you're selling hard to like, just put it on screen, damn it. I think we're in an interesting time now where most solid productions on linear have those elements in there. It feels silly when they're not involved, right? So seat at the table accomplished. I think the real guts that are out there right now are the folks who are letting the fans lead. And treating them as equals to the conversation that's happening within. It takes a level of confidence and some scary feelings in those rooms to do it, but I think we're seeing some really, really cool work out there where like fans are starting to generate the conversation, not just have a seat at the table, but contribute in a meaningful way as to where do we take this? What story are we talking about? Through polling, by asking, what do they want to see? Who do you want to hear from? Who do you think is Pedro's daddy? That type of stuff, I think that's the next layer, is trusting these engaged fan bases to be meaningful contributors and leaders of your production.
Yeah, I want to add to that too, because those moments are always the most memorable. We had a conversation last night, and whenever we discuss in these broadcasts, it's typically we remember the tweets that were shared on broadcasts. I know he like works on NBA TNT, so seeing Shaq fall over or Shannon coming out with a black a mile and do-rag, those memes still live today, so it's evergreen.
Yeah, I was going to say too, I mean, I think one of the things that we see, because we cross the game day production and the broadcast production, I think it's going to be interesting over the next couple of years to see how the media rights holders start to interact with each other. Because, you know, you've got Fox, you guys have NFL, you have MLB, you've got these close partners, you have NFL sitting on the stage with you. There's opportunities to utilize the stadium screens too, to send people to these alternate experiences or these after experiences. Same thing obviously with Turner and you know, NBA properties, right? If I'm walking out of a Golden State Warriors game, maybe there's a QR code that says, hey, join the press conference and ask questions, and a fan might scan and want to tweet in and ask a question, and maybe that question gets featured. I think there's a lot of opportunities to use that screen real estate across channel that, we maybe haven't seen fully tapped yet.
Speaking of ask questions, please do not let me ask these brilliant minds all of the questions. You see it behind us. If you are interested in asking a question, tweet it, #HS22. We will absolutely make sure we leave time at the end to ask questions as well. But I'm curious as well, you mentioned Amanda, Tyler, I'm sure all of you, I've been in the control room too when you're fighting to please put my tweet on air. I've got something great. What's your advice for people in that same spot who are begging a producer to let them put content on air? How do you bridge that? What's your best advice for any of you who want to? You've all been there, I know it.
Yeah. I was just gonna say no hard feelings. Like a no is just like, okay, I'm gonna ask you again. I'm gonna keep pushing. And then once you have that one win, you follow it up with analytics and explain why it was received so well. And then you just build that trust. I played Division III football, so just being in that team atmosphere, it just shows you once they're able to build your trust, then you get more opportunities, and you just can't let them down. Obviously, you're gonna be learning along the way, but just continue to take those strides and take those chances.
I think for us too, you're exactly right. I can't tell you how many times we would miss an opportunity, and after the show I would go up and say, hey, look at the numbers that this is doing. This is what people are talking about, and we totally missed the boat. And then you build that trust over time, because then once they give you that one chance to put it on there and they see how successful it is, it's like all systems go moving forward. And another thing that we do, which is bad, but if, say, we don't put it up, but ESPN does, we always have ESPN up at our network, we point that out. We're like, see, they're doing it. Like, look at that. Like, they're not missing the boat on this. And it's almost like the competition inside of all of us that it's like, dang it, like, we absolutely missed the boat with this one. But building trust, I think, has been the most successful thing for us. Like, over the years, it has grown so much where now there is a trust. They don't question, what does that even mean? What is, what is that meme, or what is that GIF, or, people will call it, like, they used to call it like snap face, or, Insta face, or stuff like that. Like, they just totally didn't even respect the social space, but now they see the value in it. And you have, big names within our league too. Like Tom Brady getting on Twitter was one of the best things, because he's actually funny with it. I'm a Giants fan though, so I will say Eli Manning on Twitter is funnier, but having these big names get on there, it kind of helps sell things. If it's a lesser known player that's tweeting something that could be good to include, a little bit harder to sell. But if you have Tom Brady who's tweeting about the combine, you better believe we're going to be getting that tweet in our combine broadcast, just because of who it is tweeting about it.
It sounds like a lot of the key to the success is actually more content, right? The ecosystem is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we actually, as part of it, asked you all if you are creating more content now in 2022 than you have been in years past, and we'll pop the answer up on the board so you can be part of our panel as well. But it's not, we may be doubling the amount of content, but we're not necessarily doubling the amount of people that we're hiring. So how do you get more efficient to produce, okay, a resounding yes, 89% of you are making more content now, which none of us are especially surprised by that answer. So this one will be a really interesting question for people who answered yes. How do you get more efficient in producing more content? Because we're being asked to do more than ever before.
I can hop in, and I think for us, the pandemic really opened our eyes to, we have for years had these big and bad productions where if it's the Super Bowl or the draft, whatever tentpole event it is, we have this very expensive production truck filled with people who specialize in their position, filling those trucks, and those are great, and I think they add value to what we're putting out there. It helps tell the story, absolutely, but the pandemic really opened our eyes to, we can still produce great content in a lean and mean fashion. And I could be producing graphics and social from my kitchen table in California. We have one of our hosts sitting in his garage in Manhattan Beach. We have another host who's at his mother-in-law at in Kansas, in the middle of nowhere, and it's still generating the same numbers that we were seeing pre-pandemic. We love Tagboard and genuinely have found that has been the most successful way for us to just use this nimble tool where it is one person sitting there managing, a couple different positions, whereas it used to be there's 5 people that were doing these positions. So I think that has been something that, it really opened our eyes that viewers at home don't necessarily, and we were talking about this at dinner last night too, viewers at home don't necessarily care about this glamorous production and beautiful set, and yes, it's great to have, but it's not always necessary. You can still tell the same great stories and still be engaging with your fans sitting at your kitchen table in Southern California.
I mean, first off, like, that poor man at his mother-in-law's house in Kansas, like, God, during the pandemic, Godspeed. I think where we are right now with that need to develop more, right? It's not a want anymore. Like, there is like an absolute need to be able to feed all these distribution points. The solve for us is at the conceptual level. Before we enter into a production, understanding that there will be needs beyond the one single piece that comes out of it. So we still shop for the same ingredients now, right? But where in the past, I think it was very much you take that final output and then try and slice it up to feed all the other areas. We look at it more as like, if all these ingredients are on the table, yes, this is the key deliverable that we need to do, but what else can we make with those ingredients? And having that conversation up front, I think it allows for some really unique ideas that are complementary to each other and tell a more holistic story across the entire ecosystem in the BR app, on BR's super powerful social and portfolio brands, and in the linear experience. It is not one piece of content that has been reformatted for all those things. It's a different set of content executions that all tell a narrative story around one single piece. And that slight switch for us has allowed us to grow our content distribution massively and keep it native to the audiences that are in each area.
Yes, and to add on that, it's very similar with us with the podcast. Obviously, our interviews typically last between an hour, hour and a half, even can hit 2. So a lot of thought goes into the rundown. How can we create topics within the show that would be evergreen, or that other people will want to interact with it? Because I remember recently we had T-Mac on the pod, and we tweeted out a quote that he said that KD and Kyrie were more skilled than LeBron and D-Wade, and I mean, that didn't live up to it, but LeBron and D-Wade ended up engaging with that content, and we were able to milk that a lot by optimizing it for TikTok, IG, YouTube, the website, writing articles. So our thought process is whenever we create a show, we try to make sure we cover as much as we possibly can to give it as much legs as it can as well.
Yeah, and something, Christine, you and I spend a lot of time talking about and talking about with our partners is, from a product perspective, the future of production is now. I mean, the producers that you see on this stage that are in charge of all this amazing content, they're not calling all of us young or anything, but I mean, they're more used to creating Instagram stories and TikToks and things that have simple drag and drop with your finger. You hit a search bar and look up a heart emoji, and then you drag it down and hit send, right? It's that simple. And so from a product perspective, we challenge our team at Tagboard to make sure that when we're introducing new product, that it's making everything more efficient, the workflows are easier, and honestly, I mean, we laugh because we kind of stumbled upon this as a business. It wasn't always intentional, towards broadcast and game day production, event production. We started by throwing tweets on a screen, throwing selfies up on a board, and what we found was, actually, I think it was you guys at NFL Media that came to us and you're like, hey, we're hacking your system to put graphics on there because it's way more efficient of a workflow than what we were previously doing. And so we ended up building a graphic system because our clients came to us and said, hey, this is a much easier way to do it. long-winded way of saying like the reason why we do what we do is because we believe there's a world where when you need to create more content, you need to be able to do it more efficiently, less people. You need to be able to do it at the kitchen counter, right? And at an enterprise level that doesn't sacrifice the quality. And so that's what we push our team towards. And, having experts like Christine on our staff and the amazing team that she's built of, producers that have come from the industry, you mix that with a product team and brilliant designers and engineers, and like there's a lot that we can do together as an industry to move that forward.
It's really interesting too. You talk a lot about creating this ecosystem of content. It's also a really effective way to monetize an audience. You already paid to get that viewer, and now they're still within your system. So it's an effective way to continue to send them through your system. I know we only have a few minutes left, so I want to make sure we get to some folks' questions. We did have a question, and CJ, I think this one's coming in for you. And it's talking about tools to bring lift to podcast production and partnerships. All right, they called out Tagboard, but you don't have to talk about just Tagboard. You can talk about whatever tools you'd like, but talking about how you can bring lift to podcast production in particular.
Can you speak to Tagboard tools? Can bring lift to podcast production partners? I would say the way that you're able to incorporate it into the production is more of just like highlighting, making it a part of the rundown. Making sure you're utilizing everything that people are already doing on social media and integrating that into the show. So I would say that's how the tools to lift the podcast production.
It's really less of an afterthought, more of woven into the actual rundown.
I'll also point out, like, a podcast without video right now is almost not worth doing. So the idea that we're, like, when we say podcast, it's like, how do we bring this tool set? Bring it in the same way you would create any impactful video content. Whether that's a live experience recording the podcast or it's the elements that you produce afterwards. Like, I don't think you need to reinvent the process of how you're integrating these types of things, but treat it as a video experience just as the audio experience is treated. And I think you'll see a great return on that too.
Yeah, I think that you're right. The video element is really important. It's almost not just an auditory medium anymore. It's holistic video, sound, audio. We have another one coming in. It says, we see these audience experiences create some really fun and organic moments on your productions. Is there one specific fun story that stands out when you think about those moments? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. You can really drop one of your best stories here.
I'm not talking about the craps table right now, are we?
That goes home with you.
I mean, I got hundreds from the TNT side of things. But I mean, I think there's the Kenny Dog moment with the tight pants. There's Baby Shaq. I mean, there's so many good ones there. I think what I would say to wrap around it is like we've created meaningful relationships through this, where the viewership on not just the Thursday show, but on Tuesday, on the MLB show, like these users feel very connected to the talent in a way that like I'm not sure we would be able to provide without intention. And our producers on the linear side do such an incredible job of inviting them in and allowing them to have that direct connection where like you make that joke on Twitter, right, about Kenny and the dog and the tight pants. That's not for your Twitter audience. Like that person is talking to Kenny. And the ability to poke fun at Kenny and then get Shaq to laugh with you, like all of a sudden you're in the room with them. You're in the green room or the barber shop or whatever it is, and you've created this intimate connection between the two. And we see a lot of recurring folks in there who Chuck will call out by name and make fun of the avatar. And so like I think that's what it is more than anything is there's so many great individual moments, but you wrap them all together and we've like really developed really intimate relationships between the fan and the talent.
Yeah, so true. I think I've heard Matt Wilkline at Turner Sports refer to it, the fan or the viewer as the fifth host, which I love, kind of letting them have a seat.
Yeah.
Kind of wrapping up here before you kick us off. Nate, if you want to finish off with what you're hoping to see next, what should we have our eye on, that emerging trend that you think is going to shape the future of fan engagement?
It's a good question. I think that, what we're seeing is, we're seeing a huge increase in data sources, right? There's a lot of different sources of content, sources of data that you can pull in, that I think the more, going back to the efficiency play, like the more efficient you can make your production, and to Tyler's point, if you've got like all these puzzle pieces, you can probably actually shape your puzzle in many different ways, and to do so is going to take fast, efficient experiences and people trained on those experiences so that you can create unique programming. I think we're going to see an uptick in a lot of that, anything from sports betting to NFTs, to even just unique data points, and seeing like influencers, influential people pulling in some of this data and being able to create their own stories and their own shows is going to be really interesting over the next 5-10 years. We're going to see a lot of different formats.
Any final thoughts from y'all on what you're watching next?
For us, it's live, and shifting the idea of live from appointment viewing to always on live. The BR app will do 5x live content this year compared to any year before. We see audience demand for it. We see people coming into the app and wanting to experience in a community conversation around specific topics. But then we also see it as a super efficient content creation model, where you really can take that hero live experience, break that down into additional, like the Shea example is a great one, right? You didn't just take that moment of that comment from Tracy McGrady and let it live in the live. You took that, you ran with it, you created additional content of it. We see live as a massive content engine, and you'll see us, I think, pretty aggressively lean into that to help bring our audience in even further.
I would say for us too, one thing that we've kind of started flirting with in the past, but not quite there yet, would just be gamifying our experiences. And we have already talked about the second screen experience and how, what was it, 89% or 70% of people have their phones in their hand when they're watching TV. So it's just kind of gamifying that interaction already, and just kind of adding to it and adding value to the production, and kind of having fun with it at the same time.
Nobody likes to prove they know more than a sports fan, so I love that approach. All right, CJ, bring it home for us.
So I really haven't dove deep into it, but I'm curious to explore like virtual reality and AI, figuring out ways to get people to really come to the club, have a drink with their favorite uncle virtually. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you all especially for taking the time. I know y'all live very busy lives, so we appreciate you coming here, dropping a little bit of your secret sauce. Thank you all for joining us.